Oh, we made it. Friday morning, the beginning of Memorial Day weekend. And Preston Thorne, a lot of people would say this is the official beginning of the summer.
If you made that argument, you'd be correct.
Okay.
You'd be correct. Big weekend coming up, days off coming up, regardless of what you're doing. If you made that argument, you'd be absolutely correct.
That is how it will go. A big, big weekend, the start of the summer, and after yesterday, well, maybe the start of another soap opera for South. We thought it was done. We thought we were going to have to wait till June 2nd. No, sir. No way. John Whittle drops a bombshell. Tyler, let's hit the most important things of the day.
Now, on the early game, let's kick off the show with the MITs, the most important things on the game.
It has escalated. Tyler, I know y'all had, I believe it was you and Terry, I believe they had John Whittle.
We did.
On the show yesterday to follow up on an article that he has put out on thebigspur.com.
What's the award for, not a Grammy, not an Emmy, but it's like the Pulitzer Prize or something like that? What's the award for a newspaper publishing article? Because this is groundbreaking. An expose, Bill. Investigative reports.
Well, yeah, it is. Listen, this is
bombshell.
It is. I'm interested. We're going to play some more of the audio from yesterday on several things. If you haven't read it, it is definitely worth going and signing up on thebigspur.com and reading it, because if you wonder what happened with South Carolina baseball, and we all did, we now know. We now know what happened. And, Tyler, let's start with you. Let's get your take, because you listened to John. We're going to replay some of this. But as you read the article and then y'all had him on, what was your take on what he was saying and how it now all of a sudden aligned with what you saw and what we had to discuss for 3 months regarding baseball?
It made a lot of things make sense, I'll say that much. And obviously you know John longer than probably all of us, and if he's writing something like this, it's legit. You know, this is not a post on a message board or somebody that, you know, just showed up and started covering the team this year. He's as well connected as anybody that covers this baseball program. He references in the article, this isn't just, you know, talking to players, this is talking to scouts, this is talking to other coaches. Like, he's getting this from all sides, and again, eye-opening to the nth degree. And, you know, credit to John Whittle, because, you know, we talk about this a lot. People in media, there's a relationship you have between coaches and programs that it's a fine line you have to walk. And when you're putting something like this out, you're risking a lot doing that in terms of access to coaches, access to the program, and that kind of stuff. And you have to be 100% certain what you're putting out there is legit. And again, I trust John Whittle, you know, more than just about anybody when it comes to covering the baseball program. So this was huge yesterday.
Yeah, and to me, this is the value of media. This is the triumph of media. This is what reporters get a bad rap, and the quote-unquote media is always looked down upon, especially from coaches. But the media helps us on the outside get an idea of what's going on, because as Tyler said, when you read the article, when you look at some of the different scenarios that are played out in the article, many of the things that were head-scratching or puzzling as you watch the team all season or as you're being a fan, it definitely started to make a little bit more sense, or maybe it confirmed a lot of the things that you had already seen.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Again, if you don't know, if you're just tuning in, or we didn't pay attention yesterday, or you just stayed away from the internet as a whole.
Well, which is not a bad idea.
No. John Whittle has I think you're right, expose. It's called,
I like that word,
Behind the Scenes of the 2025 baseball season. And we'll go into some detail on this throughout the morning, because the other part to this now is I think Jeremiah Donati.
What a day he had yesterday.
What does he get to? How does he receive this information? How does he process this information? And does he just cut ties with Pulmonary? Does he? And look, there's more in here. There's a segment in here about Eddie Copper and the way that Eddie Copper was brought back, and the way that Eddie Copper was used this season, and maybe some liability issues that are now at the feet of Pulmonary and Terry Rooney. It's going to be really interesting. I think today, maybe Jeremiah Donati looks around and goes like, I was just trying to get to my Memorial Day cookout, and do some hamburgers and hot dogs, and now I got to work on a Friday.
My guy is up there yesterday. He's like, man, the new stadium, we're going to have boards. There's going to be elevators. We're going to do everything, man. It's going to be great. And his phone is just buzzing nonstop.
He already had a swimsuit on. He was thawing out the hamburgers. Now he's got to put the suit back on.
Yeah. He's not a suit guy, though. I mean, I've seen him, but I think we saw that picture of him one of his first meetings, kind of more of a modernized. I think he had like a sweater.
I would say his dress code is tech bro.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah.
He's firmly entrenched in the tech bro dress code.
So, I do ask you, Preston, because there's so much to tie in here and so much to get to and just so many different pieces. I read on air the post from Roman Kimball's father the other day, John Kimball, or Jeff, maybe. Either way, it was on Facebook. But we read it, and you said, boy, the parents got to stay out of this. But now you reread this. I'm not saying that Jeff Kimball's right, but you read it, now do you go, oh, I see what he's saying at least? I'm not saying what he did is right, and I'm not saying it gives leeway for parents to go on social media and blast coaches. But now you read it, and you go like, that's the way I do it. I see it, I'm like, all right, I see where his anger is now coming from. Probably still got vented improperly, but I now at least look at it and I'm like, oh, I see where you're coming from with your anger.
Sure. I mean, yes, I get it, but I don't know what different things are happening in organizations. Yeah, I can't get behind that. I just can't get behind that being said. But obviously, when a team is this bad, I think we understand that there's dysfunction happening. And that to me is very clear. And what's very interesting to me is that we give these people the benefit of the doubt all the time for really no reason. And we already automatically assume that these coaches know what they're doing and that they're on the up and up and I just keep telling y'all, they might not be. They don't deserve the benefit of the doubt all the time just because they've either been or they are in a specific position. All of them are not great. And that is very clear to me. And all of them don't have the student athlete's best interests at heart, and all of them don't have the programs at heart.
There's a lot to get into on this today in terms of what John Whittle would write and the things that are going on. There are some things that are strictly just coaching related. You played for a guy that was an old school, hard nosed, do it by my way or do it or just go sit on the bench kind of guy. One of the things in here is, and I don't know how to even take this, but not allowing the players to shower after. I think it was I think it actually happened twice, where they were not allowed to shower after the game. They were not allowed back into the locker room and were told to change outside in the parking lot. That's what might have set up some of the losses that we saw down the stretch, is the way that it's kind of phrased in here. Basically, it was the loss to Kentucky that was one of the more competitive ones in the SEC, is the way John puts it. It says, following the final game of the series, Paul Mainieri was so displeased with the players he didn't allow them to go to the locker room to shower and change before they traveled home. After a game that lasted longer than 3.5 hours, the players were made to change in the outfield parking lot before boarding the bus to catch the plane home, which was the second time that was done, along with an incident in the Texas A&M series.
As I said in our group text yesterday, a lot of this information feels very, very outlandish and outrageous. And I'll just remind everybody, I played for Lou Holtz.
So when did y'all?
And if there would have been an expose about the things that Lou Holtz did, said, the actions that occurred, we might not be celebrating as much as we did. And you made a great point. Lou Holtz won, and so we can slide a lot of things under the rug. Yeah. Paul Mainieri did not, and so here we go.
And today's student athlete is a lot different than 20-plus years ago. You also have to take that.
They have money and options.
Too.
They have money and options. We had zero, so we had to take whatever was given to us.
That's one thing that, there's a way to handle things and there's a way to not handle things. And this one will go down as one of the ways not to handle them, I think. But we'll get into a lot of this. There's a lot to get to here from what occurred yesterday and how, or I say what occurred. Nothing occurred yesterday. There was just an article put out. But what occurred now as we learned. Last night, NBA playoffs. I think this series is going, you might have been right when you said the other day it might be a sweep. But I think this series is going
maybe gentleman's sweep.
It might be. Oklahoma City is really, really good. They're really good. And I don't think people realize that. And people forget they went from being really good to really bad accumulating a bunch of draft picks and now being really good again.
It's a really cool story. Oklahoma City, small market. They have a unknown player as far as a superstar is concerned. I do not blame anybody for not paying attention. However, you might be missing one of the greatest teams in NBA history, and the numbers and all the facts support that this could be. When you start talking about the Chicago Bulls or the Golden State Warriors, this team is putting up numbers and has put up numbers to put them in that same pantheon. All they got to do is win a championship.
Also in the NHL, we won't spend much time on this because it's going poorly for me.
Caniac's not doing well right now.
Florida got going last night, and they rolled to a 5-0 victory. They are now up 2-0.
I like that phrase. They got it going.
They got it going quick, and rolled to a 5-0 victory up in Raleigh over the Carolina Hurricanes. So
shout out to Dr. Greg Little.
If he was there, I don't know if he made it through all of the game.
That was a bad start to his summer.
I'll say this. I didn't make it through all of the game. I was like, oof, you could tell quite early.
Shout out to Dr. Little, president of Midlands Tech. We was there a couple weeks ago. He big Canes fan. Not going well.
No, it's not going well at all. But that was the NBA and NHL. Baseball. We got some baseball news. All right. The Braves lost last night. We got some Major League Baseball news. We got lots of baseball news. Braves lost, but guess who comes back today?
A little earlier than expected. A smidge, right, Tyler?
Alex Anthopoulos was on an Atlanta radio station the other day, and he said he wasn't really sure, so kind of thought maybe it was going to be another week or so, but it's good to see they're finally calling the kid up from Gwinnett.
Yeah, he deserves a chance. He's been
blasting home runs, batting like 500.
Tyler, you weren't in here yesterday. It was so funny watching Ronald Acuna versus the Gwinnett Stripers. What are they?
No, they are the Gwinnett Striper. He's on the Striper.
Watching him versus the rest of the talent, it was like, oh, pick the major leaguer out of here. It's him. Clearly, this guy.
You know, the other part of that I wish I could just watch is these guys are in AAA, so they're right there on the cusp. But what do you think Ronald Acuna Jr. is pulling up to the ballpark in a AAA like parking lot? While everybody else is like, all his other teammates
he's parking his Maserati next to somebody's Honda Accord.
Yeah, that's the other part, dude. Yeah, he's got all the bling and the chains. These guys are over here fighting for scraps in AAA. Also last night, not the news you want. The Colorado Rockies lost again. You guys are aware of what they have now accomplished. They are 8-42.
Yep.
The worst 50-game start since 1901. Let me repeat that. Worst 50-game start since 1901, and you have to go back to I couldn't even say this correctly, to 1895. 1895, and the old Louisville Colonials, 7-43 to find a worse start than the Rockies. We are watching history. History needs to be watched right now.
The Louisville Colonials get a bad rap. Things were going bad on team. We don't know what was going on with their manager. Maybe their manager didn't let them shower. Maybe they have an excuse for being that bad. We don't know what was happening with the Louisville Colonials in 1891. It's a tough squad, man. I think they get a bad rep. That's why I say, Bill, you don't want to be the worst team because you get brought up 150 years later.
Yeah.
Some poor Louisville Colonials has his legacy tarnished by you just now.
If the Rockies are on pace right now to surpass the well-known Cleveland Spiders.
Another good squad, man.
Of 1899, who finished with the most losses ever by a Major League Baseball team at 20-134. Just for the record, the White Sox set the modern era record last year with 121.
That Cleveland Spiders team was plagued by injuries all year.
A well-known fact.
Rough go of it. But if their starting pitcher would have stayed, they could have had a better season.
They were all bitten by spiders. 803-404-6100. So we got a lot to get to. We will get a little bit more in-depth on this John Whittle article and break that down more as we roll along. Tyler Head filling in for Jen Jensen this morning. You're listening to Preston Thorne and Bill Gunner. Tyler Head, it's the early game. Bill Gunner for Corley Pool Solutions, where they believe in providing the absolute highest quality they believe in providing the absolute highest quality swimming pool service at the most affordable price to you and your family. Don't believe me? Give them a phone call today and line up that summer maintenance. It is Memorial Day weekend. You should have already done it, but if you haven't, there's still time. Tracy Corley, with over 20 years of experience in the pool maintaining industry, knows how to get that pool looking beautiful, to have it sparkling for your backyard cookouts, for the days you come home and you're worn out and ready to jump in the water. It will be ready to be used, and that's why you have a backyard pool. So call today and find out about flat rate pricing, including all of the chemicals. 803-445-8109. Again, that's 803-445-8109. It is more affordable for you to contact Corley Pool Solutions than for you to try and maintain the pool yourself. Give them a phone call today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. 803-445-8109.
It is time for a look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center on your Friday here on the game. Happy to report as of right now, roadways looking pretty clear for the most part. Hopefully it stays that way as we make our way through the morning. Taking a look at your weather, currently 67 degrees here in downtown Columbia. High today will get up to 82 with plenty of sunshine. Cloudy and 76 tomorrow as it cools off just a little bit. Back up to 82 on Sunday as the chances for rain do return. And then Monday for your Memorial Day holiday, cloudy with a high of 76. That's your traffic and weather on the early game from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center.
803-404-6100 as we get you set for your Memorial Day weekend. And is it Memorial Day weekend that normally it feels like when we were growing up? We're a little bit older than Tyler. Was it Memorial Day weekend that you usually got the summer blockbuster movie?
Yes. Yes.
And it wasn't
big weekend.
That was normally the
I
movie.
feel like Men in Black or something Independence Day or something along those lines came out during
We'd get so instead of a blockbuster movie, we get a Memorial Day blockbuster expose from John Whittle.
I love that word.
Yeah.
It's a great word. Expose.
On
Pulitzer Prize winning.
On South Carolina baseball, and I read it yesterday, and I had to read it twice. It's long, but I had to read it twice to grasp everything. John Whittle joined Terry and Tyler yesterday on the halftime show, and let's listen to him. This is him talking a little bit about the issues that began early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it started, somewhat early in the season. I mean, it obviously got worse as the year went on. There was a meeting after the Kentucky series where, there was a meeting in the locker room where the players were just told, y'all aren't good enough for just to be concise about it. Y'all aren't good enough, and we're going to have to go out and get a bunch of guys to be good around here. And there's some truth in needing to upgrade the talent. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about it. I don't think anybody, certainly not me, coming on this show or anywhere else, and tried to present a case that this was a championship type of squad. I know we talked about it on here. I felt like this team was probably a sub-500 team in the league. I had them at 14-16 going into the year, so we're not painting a picture of being, championship caliber, but, the talent level was a lot different than this. And, when you keep being told over and over again and that, you're not good enough, it wears on you. And, there were some obvious signs that things weren't going well, and it was getting worse. And when your coaches and your players aren't really lining up and aren't on the same page, and you don't believe in each other, that's when things like the Florida series happened, the Auburn series happened, and that Kentucky series was after that Kentucky series, when that meeting happened, I think a lot of the players, I think that was kind of the boiling point, and you saw it in some of the games that they played afterwards. That's when things really started getting out of control from a results standpoint.
So we just start with that. You heard him kind of say that. Now, you mentioned it. You played for Lou Holtz. Lou had a way of motivation, I guess. But let's start with what he said. You have essentially the head coach and maybe top down, but we're going to just start with the head coach, saying y'all aren't good enough. Y'all are not good enough. Preston, take us into the mind of a college athlete when your coach is basically just telling you you're not good enough to be here. You're not good enough to play against these teams.
Yeah, that's tough to swallow. When you especially when you're seeing the results and you're seeing what's happening, you don't necessarily want to hear that. You kind of get the picture. Hey, coach, look at our record. We kind of get that. We need you to be on our side here. We don't need you to be looking forward to the next year or bringing in the next crop of guys. And that's why I'm always cautious about using that language about when we heard Paul Mainieri start talking that we need to recruit better, we just got to get better guys. I always bring up the idea like, oh, hey, coach, hey, what about I'm right here. You don't need to say that in front of me, right? I always bring up that message because we as fans get very callous and like, oh, well, next year's guys coming in, the class of 2028, they're going to be. And it's like, hey, man, that's not me. I'm right here. I need you to be coaching me right now. But it does remind me of a story that some of the fellas from the 05 team with Coach Spurrier, and I had to confirm it. But I believe the 05 team.
Oh, good. You're going to tell this one, then I've got a Frank Martin story.
The 05 team lost to Auburn 48-7.
Yeah.
I believe that was the timeout before the game started.
It was the two timeouts and then the ball off of Antonio Hefner's ear hole to start the game.
And the post game wrap up was Coach Spurrier telling the team, who we got next week? Kentucky? Yeah, y'all can probably beat them. And he let them shower. They did shower, but there wasn't a lot of conversation after that. And I say all that to say that this does happen sometime. Fortunately, you have to be a coach who's on good standing with your team to be able to pull those moves, and obviously Pulmonary was not.
I've got a good one too. A Frank Martin story. Apparently, in his first year, as he's coaching, two of the former coaches, Cephas Bunton and Mike Boynton, are sitting at the practice, and Frank Martin is just going off on the team, but he starts going off on the previous coaching staff, and telling the team, "You stink because of the previous coaches," and two of them are sitting basically courtside. And I think we can all look at Frank and be like, yeah, that probably happened.
Tough spot. Tough spot to be in.
But anyway, Tyler, what did you, hearing John Whittle talk about that and just some of the ways that the players and the coaches interacted, what was your take on that?
Yeah, and, like I said earlier, we've all had hard-nosed coaches that, are on your case during practice and stuff like that. But there's a way to do it where you're building, saying, hey, you're not good enough, I want to get you better. And in this way, it just kind of comes across as you're not good enough, and I'm kind of giving up on you already, which seems like something, as he said, started earlier on the season. And obviously, when we saw the performances as the season went on, especially in SEC play, it kind of backs that up a little bit. Because if I'm a player and I hear that from my coach that he's just ready to replace me with whatever guys he can get out of the transfer portal for next season, I'm not going to play my hardest for him. Why would I?
There's a lot to unpack. There's that one. We'll get to some more audio on this. There's also going to be the discussion of how does Jeremiah, we joke about it, about Jeremiah Donati having his bathing suit laid out, Burgers having his first.
Was having a great day.
And what he's got to do next, or how does he approach it? How do you have this sit-down conversation, and how does Paul Maneri feel about this? I mean, this is something, real quick, Preston, Tyler, that can tarnish a legacy?
No, I don't think so, because his legacy is not here. We'll just act like the people that are living his legacy, they'll just act like this never happened.
I do think he's got to say something about it, right? Like whether he's, defending himself or saying it's wrong, whatever it may be. If he's silent about it, I think that's more telling than anything else.
Okay.
And again, I don't know when his next media availability is now that the season's over, but we got to hear something from him
on Memorial
about
Day,
this.
I bet. Memorial Day at like 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Today's a good day.
Darren Horn pulled a stunt like that and had a media availability on like January 1, and everybody was on the way to the Birmingham Bowl.
Hey, listen, guys, I made myself available.
Yes, that's my fault. Y'all didn't come or weren't in town. 803-404-6100. We'll get into this. Also, Preston said there was positive news yesterday.
That's what I'm saying. My guy was having a good day yesterday, man. Listen to all these cool things we're going to do at the stadium.
We'll explain a little bit of that as well this morning. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Tyler Head. It's the early game.
Press here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. If it's a cracked windshield, that's no problem. They'll come out to your location and they'll replace it for you, usually for free, and they'll work directly with the insurance to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are, school, home, work, it does not matter. Absolute Glass will take care of it for you. Now, if you're at home and looking to increase the value of your home, you can do that with new windows and mirrors, and Absolute Glass will take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures. Say it all the time. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
And time for another look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on your Friday morning. Looking at the roadways, still looking pretty clean as of right now. No major delays to speak of. Of course, you got your regular construction going on in the area of Malfunction Junction, so be mindful as you're making your way through there. High today is 82 degrees, currently sitting at 67 here in downtown Columbia. Plenty of sunshine to get your weekend started. A little bit cooler tomorrow, high of 76 with some cloud cover. Back up to 82 on Sunday with a chance of rain returning, and then cloudy and 76 for your Memorial Day coming up on Monday. That is your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on The Game.
6:35 here as we are up and running on a Memorial Day Friday. We will be off on Monday, but be back with you bright and early Tuesday morning, so plan accordingly. And I mentioned to Preston off air, Memorial Day weekend is huge for Preston and Patrick Perrette because lacrosse Final Four this weekend. Tyler, do you get into the lacrosse?
I check it out on occasion. Can't say I'm a fanatic about it.
Okay. All right. Well, you've got Cornell and Penn State at noon tomorrow.
Classics.
Sounds like a quality lacrosse matchup.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one, I feel like, is what lacrosse is all about. Maryland and Syracuse at 2:30 in the lacrosse Final Four.
Okay, I'll make that appointment television.
Sounds about
2:30
right.
tomorrow.
Sounds about right.
Make sure Integrated Media is taking care of you and put all the stuff together.
Correct.
For the big viewing tomorrow. And then for those wondering, National Championship, 1 o'clock on Memorial Day. I know that was always a huge deal. Sorry, is a huge deal. So
shout out to my cousin DJ.
803-404-6100. We'll get back into the baseball and the article from John Whittle and thebigspur.com. But let's discuss a little bit. All right, football stadium upgrades, new suites, pretty seats, recruiting lounges,
elevators, video boards, $350 million, a lot. This is the beginning of the Donati era. The Jeremiah Donati era started yesterday, I think.
Okay.
Because we're going to have the approvals for the new stadium, which is going to have his fingerprints all over it, even though there might have been some considerations from the forward. This is going to be his project that's going to live on forever, and then he's going to have to make a decision about baseball. Yesterday was the day that Jeremiah Donati became the athletic director. Yes, he's been doing all stuff. He's been palling around, running with Coach Staley. That was a lot of successful. That was a lot of fun. Things have been kind of quiet on the front. Spring ball, they got through that. Yesterday was the day where facilities conversation, when we talk about what do athletics directors do, well, they raise money, they build facilities, they hire coaches. And he made two of those conversations were in full force yesterday. One about the stadium, which was a good thing, I think. Other was about the coach, which we'll find out.
What I have read on this, I understand, obviously, there's going to be a lot of architectural things that you will be able to see in the stadium, even if you're not in the suites. The biggest one, from what I was trying to read yesterday, is the construction of a recruiting lounge, a recruitment lounge that'll be essentially where the South I wanted to call it the South Tower. What about the South I got to go back and find the word. The South Ramp. The South Ramp that comes down. Basically, that is behind where South Carolina runs out, and they're going to demolish that and reconstruct that area to have a different kind of lounge and even some suites in it. I think that'll be the biggest change. And on top of that building, they're going to put another video board up. Well,
from what I've read and this is another really fun activity, looking at renderings.
Yeah,
you get to look at renderings. You're like, ooh, that's gonna be fun. I guess, I don't know, but all the renderings look great. So you look at all the renderings, you see those. What I've gathered is there's a twofold activities here. One, you got to have more suites. Why? Because you need more money. So you need more premium seating. People want to come to the games and have premium experiences. You'll have high-level suites. You have more available seating for people that want to get into the suite type of game. And then the second part, they want to have more student seating or improve the student experience because the students are the lifeblood of the program, not only now, but later. You want them to come, have a good experience so that they can come eventually buy those suites when they become adults and they start making money. So you want to improve that experience. So those seem to be the two categories of folks. Also, for the regulars, for the regs, the civilians, they seem to be improving. Well, they're going to be more bathrooms, better concessions, and there's going to be, and this was my favorite one, general cleanup of the ramps. And so I'm not sure exactly what that means, but there will be things for every sort of price point that involves or that uses the stadium.
803-404-6100. Let's get out to the phone lines. Andy wants to weigh in on the renovations. Andy, how you doing this morning? What's on your mind?
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned bathrooms because that is key for the everyday person who goes to a game and doesn't have a suite. Because if you go to the bathrooms and concessions, you get food, you've missed a quarter of the game, period. And that's just my biggest perk. So I hope they find a way. I don't know what they're going to do, or where they're going to go, but it's going to be interesting. I'll hang up and listen. Thanks.
Appreciate you listening, Andy. Yeah, again, I'm not an architect. I'm not a construction guy at all. So the way they're talking about reconfiguring the inner guts of the stadium doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But one of the things that was mentioned in all of the stuff that I've read is that they are going to be improving the bathroom experience because, as you said, it's not up to par right now.
Yeah. I've been in when we've had to go do stuff. You guys are saying that the troughs in the bathrooms are not.
I think the trough experience is over. We might have been the last relic of that in the nation, and I think that's probably going to be ending.
Again, just looking at, you're right, there's an effort on the west side of the stadium to increase, as you said, the suites there. It looks like also they're going to maybe redo a little bit of the actual seating around the field. If I'm looking, like you said, looking at the renderings, you're like, very nice looking. Yeah.
Every time they do a rendering, it's always a beautiful day, blue skies, packed crowd. You imagine it's a great game. It's always a sellout.
Yeah, it's like you see it right there. That's
what a day.
Looks beautiful. Everybody's decked out in their garnet.
Nice
very color coordinated.
Nice day.
The wall being garnet there looks a lot more freshly painted. Looks better. Did leave off of the names I see up here on the very top.
And
there.
To be clear, the stadium has come a long way.
It really has.
It really has come a long way. If you see the stadium where it is now, there are improvements to be made. But if you just take yourself back in time a little bit, I remember when Spurrier came, he was like, what's going on here? We need some color. We need some paintings. We need some numbers up here. We got to do it. So the stadium has come a long way. The area around the stadium has come a long way. And this is only a next step in the evolution. But this is going to be Jeremiah Donati's footprint on the program.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see and what it kind of looks like. 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in if you want to. A couple of y'all have done a couple of the topics so far. Albert, by the way, weighed in on our very early discussion about the old Louisville Colonials and Cleveland Spiders. He said players were probably playing for managers and owners who fought in the Civil War, so you know there was no patience for subpar play. It's a good point.
Yeah, that's what probably happened, man. The Colonial Spiders lost their best player to some war somewhere. And it's like, man, the season went downhill after that.
Who knows?
Scurvy? You never know, man. It's a rough time.
If you're wondering what we're talking about on that, the Colorado Rockies have set a Major League Baseball for worst opening since 1901. Yesterday, losing and are now 8.
How many showers do you think the Colonial Spiders got to take?
One a week.
You think they had indoor plumbing at their facility?
That's why they were struggling, man. I'm sure they were.
I'd like to know more about this facility that they had. Definitely lacked suites. 803-404-6100. We come back. We'll wrap up the hour. You're listening to the early game.
Preston here for our good friends at Cato's Power Equipment. Cato's Power Equipment has been family-owned and serving the Midlands since 1983. That's over 40 years, helping everyone from professional landscapers to weekend warriors. Third-generation owner Ben Cato provides top-notch service, great deals, and the mom-and-pop values that you love. And Ben is determined to raise the standard of sales, service, and retail. At Cato's, they are proud to offer a wide selection of new pre-owned mowers, tractors, and more. So if you're ready to invest in something new, the friendly team is there to make the process easy, help you choose the right equipment, find financing options, and keep your gear running strong with expert service and parts. Whether you're a weekend warrior or a seasoned landscaping pro, Cato has you covered. Got a huge selection of new and pre-owned mowers, powerful tractors, and all the gear you need to tackle any outdoor project. So swing by Cato's Power Equipment today or call them at 803-254-3711. That's 803-254-3711.
No, I don't think you're off base with that at all. It's different ways of coaching, and the modern athlete is changed, especially from a baseball standpoint. And you have all these tools that people are looking for, that players are looking for, and you're not using, and it's going to be harmful in recruiting when folks see that these aren't being used. And I don't really understand why, but yeah, I mean he has a very old school approach with players, and the way he interacts and the way he speaks to them, and the culture and is very old school, and that's okay if you have the right guys that you that you like you can do that with. But I that's becoming a lot. Those players are few and far between now at this point, I feel like.
Those were the words of John Whittle yesterday as he put out we're calling it an expose, a huge article.
Scathing.
It was scathing. And he was very clear in the beginning of this article. Let me go back and read it verbatim. But he is very clear in here that this has nothing to do. He is not discussing any coaching. These are things kind of behind the scenes. And one of the things he was just discussing in that particular audio clip was South Carolina failing to use TrackMan, a radar-based tracking system that provides real-time information on both hitters and pitchers. Also not using South Carolina last year made a big investment to purchase equipment and partner with Maven Lab to bring the biometric technology into the program and have the experts with Maven able to analyze the readings, and they didn't use that this year. Did you understand any of what I just said, Tyler? Does any of us?
Yeah, it's the new age technology that baseball has now. It's been around for a couple of years, and from reading Will's article, they kind of looked at these newfangled devices and said, nah, we're not going to use those. And,
we got eyes we use over here.
They proceeded to have the worst ERA in program history. So, yeah, I'd reconsider.
Possibly. Very, very possibly a strong reconsideration. Again, I played for Lou Holtz. So old school mentality is nothing new to me. Even at that time, Lou Holtz was a little bit behind the times. If you remember, during that first 0-11 season, they came in and Lou Holtz had this idea. He's like, the triple option worked at Notre Dame. We're going to run the I formation. Didn't work very well. There had to be somebody come along, Skip Holtz, and he brought this new thing in, Bill. This new innovation, the spread offense. You get in the shotgun. You run these plays out of the spread is a new thing. And all of a sudden we started to have a little bit of success because Lou Holtz, even though he was old school, relented some of that mentality and adapted to what the new game was. We also instituted this new crazy defense, the 3-3-5. It was innovative. It was a new thing. Doesn't sound like Paul Mainieri was willing to do any of those things. And henceforth, we've seen some of the results.
Also, Paul Mainieri has a certain way of telling his players they aren't very good or the performance was unacceptable. And, for example, making them change in the parking lot before they go all the way back home, get on a plane. You got to remember, these guys just played a 3.5-hour game, maybe 4 hours, and one of the things that kind of occurred is they're a little sweaty.
The funk on that bus or plane was obviously out of control, right?
There's got to be somebody in Lexington, Kentucky that has a story of driving by whatever their field name is and be like, is that South Carolina changing in the parking lot? Somebody had to see this, right?
I would assume. Not 100% sure, but I would assume. Or maybe he had him specifically like pull the bus kind of where it's a little area.
Circle up. Circle up. Let them change in the middle of you. So get around the cars.
803-404-6100. I'm sure a lot of you played sports. What is the worst punishment you have ever received for playing a bad game?
Good time to bring a classic back. Worst punishment. Has the coach ever told you that when we get back, we're going to be running? Or maybe turn the lights on? You ever heard that one, Tyler?
Or don't worry about bringing your gloves or bat to practice tomorrow.
That's always a good classic.
Brett Jones was our JV coach. He's now the varsity coach at Dutch Fork, but we lost a game a JV year, and he called a 6 a.m. practice before school and essentially said, yeah, don't worry about the basketballs tomorrow. Just show up at 6 a.m. That was a rough day.
Tough spot.
Because it wasn't like Saturday morning where you could go home. You had to get through the practice and then survive school.
Tough spot. Tough spot to be in. It happens.
That was the one. Send in yours, 803-404-6100. Yeah, what is the worst punishment that you've ever received for having a less than stellar performance? You or your team for having a less than stellar performance?
I'd like to note, after that Kentucky series, the Gamecocks promptly went on to get outscored 85-24 in the next two series.
Well, it adds, in all seriousness, it adds up to what we were wondering, like what occurred. We kept saying it looks like he's lost the team. The last two Fridays was Auburn and LSU. Now, LSU, we celebrated a little bit. Auburn, we did not.
85-24.
Tells you where things went. 803-404-6100. Send in your worst punishments after you or your team didn't play your particularly best game. We'll get to those hour 2 on the way.
Now time for another look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on your Friday. Still looking pretty good on the roadways as of right now. No major accidents to report. Of course, usual construction in the area of Malfunction Junction, so proceed with caution as you are making your way through those areas. Checking on the weather, and looks like it's going to be a very nice weekend. Dipped a little bit in temperature so far this morning, down to 64 degrees in downtown Columbia. High of 82 today with lots of sunshine. High of 76 tomorrow with some cloud cover. 82 on Sunday with a chance of rain. Then 76 on Monday for your Memorial Day holiday with some cloud cover. That's your traffic and weather from Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the game.
7 a.m. as we get you up and get you going here on your Friday morning. Memorial Day weekend, where John Whittle has just set the Columbia market, the South Carolina fan base, ablaze with an article yesterday detailing a lot of shortcomings for the baseball program this past season, including something such as losing to Kentucky in Game 3 and the players being forced to change in the parking lot. That's not really the big. That I've heard of worse, but it is funny. It is funny because then they had to get on the bus and then go to the airport and then fly back, all of them together after playing a baseball game.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, man. That's not a good look, man. That's when you get into, like, what are we doing, man? You can yell at me, you can run me, you can dog cuss me, but let me take a shower at least. Can I at least be clean while you're doing that to me? Can I at least wash my hair? Can I at least not be dirty while all of this is happening?
I'm assuming, the players, who was it? I think it was Nathan Hall or whatever, would wear the eye black all day. Like, was he on the plane just flying back?
Man.
Like,
come on, man. That's just, we're acting childish now. Like that's not, there's no world where that's beneficial. Listen, and again, if you just tune in, I played for Lou Holtz, and before that I played for John McKissick. So I understand old school tactics. There's no place for these kind of childish tactics. I'm all for punishment, probably a little bit more than is acceptable in modern times. I'm with it. This is out of bounds by far.
So we asked y'all, what is the worst punishment you might have ever received for playing a bad game or playing your team having a bad performance? Seth weighs in and says played USSSA baseball. We had a 16-man team. 5 guys truly were not good. I'm going to use he says 5 guys truly were not good. He said had a 3-game set with a terrible team from Concord, North Carolina. 1 game won and took game 2 for granted. They upset us for game 3. The coach started all the scrubs and told the starters to look at what we've done.
Okay.
Tyler, you can help us with this one.
Okay.
Another texter weighs in and says wrestling team lost to a private school at home one night. The next day we did spin drills for 2 hours straight.
Yeah, I've experienced similar type of punishments or wall sits for like 15 minutes straight. Those kind of things. Cycles. Those kind of things. Like, there's a lot of ways you can punish a wrestling team if they don't perform well.
Wrestling only seems like punishment. I don't even see the joy in it at all.
I will say the worst sports punishment I ever had was actually in baseball. Funny enough, we're talking about parking lots here. We went to baseball camp at Jacksonville State between my 9th and 10th grade year. Stayed in dorm rooms. Were there for like a week or whatever. And of course, when you give 14-year-old boys, time away from their parents, they're going to do some stupid stuff. Wasn't me, but I had some teammates that were doing something they weren't supposed to be doing. Literally, I'm taking a shower. It's like 11 o'clock at night, and the coach burst open the bathroom door, says, everybody outside in 5 minutes. So quickly draw off, run outside, whatever. He's making us run cycles up and down a staircase, running in a big circle, having to do like sit-ups and push-ups and jumping jacks. We did this like for 2.5 hours in the middle of the night, in the middle of a college campus in Jacksonville, Alabama, because some of my teammates were being idiots. I didn't even do anything, but my coach believed in that if one person screws up, we all screw up.
And
so
no one is the hand all.
We all suffered on that one.
You win together, you lose together, Tyler. It's a team.
That's my lasting memory from that camp, by the way. I barely remember anything else that happened besides that.
Hey, you got something from it.
You could Bailey Harris and Tim Whipple and all these old coaches. So we had a similar situation, and I'm sure I say Bailey because thankfully I was not involved. I was wise enough to, or at least my name never got brought up in it, but I was not involved. We went for a summer camp. We would go every year to Presbyterian team camp. And 1 year, a buddy of ours, the guy who played football with you, Brandon Jeffcoat, brother Brian is now was a former baseball player. Anyway, late one night, a water fight broke out in the dorm.
Magically, just broke out.
Yeah.
I get it.
So people had trash cans of water, and, kind of the way it would work is you'd knock on somebody's door and they'd open and you'd hit them with water. And so then it escalated into all kinds of other things. Well, rest in peace to Jim Parker, our assistant coach. He's coming back like from McDonald's with a bag of food and comes into the dorm. And as he came around the corner, one of the other guys went to throw a trash can of water on him and didn't quite stop the momentum in time. And so it was one of those situations where I thankfully was not involved, but I could hear them outside running at Presbyterian team camp for about what you said, about 2 hours. Coach Harris had them just running laps around the parking lot. And then I think I think he switched it around where they had to run, but then they all had to play an 8 a.m. basketball game following that.
Let me be clear on my position.
And somebody probably had to buy him more McDonald's, right?
I would assume, yeah.
Let me be clear on my position. 2 totally appropriate punishments. I'm good with both of them. Those are great. Those are good. I'm totally all right with either one of those. Now I see no problem with either one, but this, not cool.
Let's hear a little bit more. Tyler, let's play number 7. This is John Whittle yesterday. We're talking about his article that's on thebigspur.com. It is the most important thing of the day. It's a huge story. I'm interested to see how it's going to escalate, what Jeremiah Donati is going to do. Tyler brought it up. Will Paul Maneri respond to any of this? But this is part of it with practice issues. And this is another thing. Like, we're joking about, I say we're joking, but we are joking about having to change in the parking lot after the Kentucky game. And by the way, that was the second time that happened. It also happened at the Texas A&M series. But this, what John Whittle's about to talk about and you're about to hear here, is practice issues, and this is far worse than anything making them change in a parking lot. Here's John Whittle yesterday with Tyler and Terry on the halftime show.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, coaches have different practice habits and things that they value and so forth. But there are a lot of things that are pretty standard when it comes to coaching across college baseball. And you know, there's several things that South Carolina that haven't been done since before the start of the season. You know, there hasn't been any PFP work, for example. Like, that's PFP is pitcher fielding practice. I mean, that can range from anything from, you know, working on your pickoff moves and timing to fielding bunts, and those things just haven't happened since the start of the season. And you know, I've talked to several college coaches outside of the program, and that's a weekly thing. And you know, that it only makes sense. I mean, it's a part of practice. It's just something that goes on everywhere. And you know, you look at things like, you know, Bo Hollins at the end of the year threw a ball 3 feet behind Jake McCoy when he was trying to cover first base. And, you know, maybe if you're doing that once a week with your fielders and your pitchers, I mean, those things don't happen. You know, it's just there's a lot there that's kind of standard that has not been happening this season.
That's one of the things that when we're being serious about this, you go, ooh. And John Whittle adds in his article, he points to the Kentucky series again, and he mentions that Kentucky is a team that love to bunt, steal, and use creative plays on the bases. And if they'd have done some extra work, Paul Maneri was asked if they did any extra work to prepare. Paul Maneri, in an interview, said, if I'm doing my job correctly, we will. According to John Whittle, multiple sources indicated they didn't do any actual work prior to the series, but only had a pitchers meeting standing on the field during practice that lasted about 10 minutes to go over the Kentucky scouting report.
Yeah, that's institutional malpractice. You cannot do that as a coach. Your obligation is to prepare your team to perform against any circumstances, and according to this expose, that was not happening. And that's the exact opposite of what I thought it was going to be, or what I think I was sold. I assumed that the players would get tired of doing PFPs under Paul Maneri. Like, again, coach, why are we doing? That's what I assumed the way Paul Maneri's practice would go. They'd be working on the fundamentals until they got blue in the face because of that old school mentality. And apparently that's not what was happening.
That is the way this is read. John Whittle points to a couple different situations in which South Carolina failed to execute properly, kind of what you just said. He mentions, and he said it there in that interview, about Bo Hollins throwing a ball 3 feet behind Jake McCoy trying to cover first base. He mentions the same can be said for Matthew Becker trying to find a base to be the speedy Kentucky runner, or Parker Marlott throwing too wide of second base against LSU. You remember
the safety squeeze against Auburn, and again, I'm not up to date on all of the new baseball strategies, but just looking at that, it was well executed by Auburn. Granted that, but we did not have an opportunity to make any play. There was nobody covering where they were supposed to be. We looked completely disoriented, out of sorts. There was no opportunity to make a play. Even even though Auburn ran the play well and it executed, we did not look like we had any chance to make those plays. And now, when you hear this, it's like, oh, okay, well, no, they didn't have a chance.
And that's the confusing thing is he's old school in the mentality of the way that he treats his players and stuff like that, but the old school mentality of do something until you puke, he doesn't seem to want to do that, and that's very weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You have PFPs, and then later on in the article, they're talking about not hitting the cutoff man and those types of – those are the things that I assumed that Paul Maneri would be bringing.
Yeah, you'd think
we're going to do cutoff man practice all day today or something like that.
A national championship winning head coach that just glosses over the fundamental basics, like, it doesn't make sense.
Because, again, let me testify. Lou Holtz, you want to spend 20 minutes doing a 6-inch football step? Anybody want to do that? I've done it. Anybody want to spend 15 minutes of practice working on a football position? I've done that. Again and again and again. Like, what are we doing, Coach? But, yes, those fundamental things were stressed over and over again.
803-404-6100. Let's get out to Cal quickly here. We got Chris Deering coming up in the next segment. Cal, how you doing this morning? What's on your mind?
Good, guys. You're talking about that. I enjoy the show super much. Other ones are required taste. Your morning show with South Carolina is good. I was raised up in the North. We played things different in Pennsylvania. Yeah, I had coaches that literally make you like run until somebody threw up in high school. We got upset in a game. We were muddy. We're coming off on a football game that lost like a 27-game winning streak. It put us on a bus. Coach put us on a bus with our uniforms. We didn't get to change, shower, or nothing. And it was a 2-hour bus ride. But I have a college one that's my classic one. I ended up coaching with them and actually did sports radio with them. We go fly out. I transferred from a 1A to a 1AA. We fly out, go play out in the Midwest. Fly in, it takes 2.5 hours to get to the airport. From the airport to the stadium. We go to overtime on a team we should have beat the brakes off of. I won't say the coach's name because I won't do it to him, but you probably figure it out soon. He makes us, after the end of the game, go straight on the bus. We showered and everything, but it was the worst punishment for 19, 20, 23-year-old kids. We get back into this university, and we come back trucking down in there. He says, me having a coaches meeting and players meeting. He said, it's 1:30 in the morning. He said, 5 a.m. He goes, we have practice. Coach is here too. Who isn't showing up, you ain't got a damn job in this place. And he goes, and you can transfer. He goes, or you won't play this week. Literally, we found a couple guys because a few of us wanted to drink beers and stuff. And we drank a couple beers and we're like, we're just going to stay up. And some of us dozed off, and we picked a couple low-hanging fruit guys and said, you guys better stay up all night and make sure we get up to get into practice. And it was the worst practice, and coaches just got off the road and everything. They only got to see their wives for like 2 hours. I seen a coach get fired. Players got suspended. Like, whoever was late, it was gone. And, like, sure enough, it was the worst punishment because 2.5 hours sleep, and you had morning practice, and he ran us like dogs. And he ended up winning the national championship the following year, a couple other years, and he left and went to a major 1A school. He didn't coach at 1-1 there, and he was tough, buddy. He was tough.
Cal, I appreciate the phone call. Good story. Good story. We're going to hit a break. Chris Deering due up next. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner from Mid-State Roofing, where for nearly 30 years, Larry Leitner and the family, they have been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. And it's that proven history that is your assurance that their professionals will get the job done in a safe, pleasing manner to you and your operation. So 30 years is a long time, but you got to be pretty good at something to stay in business and be the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for that period of time. Another reason they're the leader is because they're there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You heard that right. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You give Mid-State Roofing a phone call, you'll speak with an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee. That phone number to call, 803-356-1919. Again, it's 803-356-1919. You can visit them on the web as well, midstateroofing.com. So if you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. 803-356-1919. Call them today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
All right, one last another look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the game as we roll along here on this Friday morning. Still happy to report that the roadways look pretty clear as of right now. Not too much issue going on. Though we do have a couple things popping up out in Lexington. Do have an accident at Augusta Road and I-20. That's right there by exit number 58. So be careful as you're making your way through there. Weather-wise, still sitting at about 65 degrees here in downtown Columbia. As of right now, high today going to get up to 82 with lots of sunshine, 76 tomorrow, 82 on Sunday with a chance of rain, and then 76 with some cloud cover on Monday for your Memorial Day holiday. That's your look at traffic and weather from Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the game.
7:20 on your Friday morning, heading into Memorial Day weekend. And for the high school level, state championships finally starting to wrap up. We had the graduations and the state championships taking place. And joining us now, Chris Deering, to talk a little bit about that. Welcome in, Chris. Happy Memorial Day weekend. And know that we'll start with baseball. We got some state championships. Airport got a text in a little while ago. Airport beating South Florence last night in baseball. So give us a little breakdown on what's going on with the baseball side of things.
Yeah, that Airport team has been rolling in the postseason, Bill, so far. I think they're undefeated since the postseason started. It's been a really good year. I was over there earlier this week for their game 1 against South Florence. They won that game 4-1. They won last night 9-2. They've been really carried by their pitching performance since really, all season really. But their pitchers is Hunter Epps and Cash Epps. They're brothers. Hunter's a senior, Cash is a sophomore, I believe. Those guys have done a fantastic job. Like I said, only allowed 3 runs in the lower state championship series. And Airport's in the finals for the first time since 2018. That team's hungry. They won a championship. They've been to the state finals before but never won one. So they will get a chance starting next Tuesday against Seneca. Seneca swept Daniel in the upper state championship. So it'll be a pretty good series, I think. Those are two pretty good teams. I think they both pitch really well. So I think that's going to be a really competitive 3-game series starting next Tuesday.
You've got that going. I've seen Lou Bezjak attending a few Lexington games and putting out some stuff on Brian Hucks or interviewing him post-game. How's Lexington looking right now?
Well, your Wildcats, Bill, are back in the state championship for the second year in a row trying to defend their title. They swept Blythewood 2-0 this week. They beat them on Tuesday and defeated them again last night. They've gotten really solid pitching as well, and Brandon Cromer has taken it to another level at the plate. I think the senior that's committed to South Carolina was 5 for 5 in the series with 3 home runs and 8 RBIs. I don't think he can get much better than that. So he's really heating up at a good time for the Wildcats. Brian Hucks has been there. He's done it before, and he knows what it takes. Now, they are playing a really good James Island team that I think coming into the season, I think James Island was number 1 preseason in most people's eyes. They got off to a little bit of a rocky start. I know this Lexington team went down to the Charleston area and beat James Island earlier in the year. So they've seen each other. They're familiar with each other, but that's going to be a really competitive and good series. James Island, again, is loaded. They got talent up and down their lineup. So looking forward to that Lexington and James Island matchup next weekend. Before I get out of 5A, I got to mention my Berkeley Stags. Not many people gave them a chance coming into the postseason. I think they came into the playoffs with a 12-10 record, I think it was, and now they're sitting at 20-10 and playing for the state championship starting next week against. They don't know who they're playing yet. Catawba Ridge and Indian Land have to play tomorrow for the deciding game in their 3-game series. It's 1-1 right now. So Landy Cox down at Berkeley, they won a title in 2022, first time in school history. He's got that team back and playing really well right now for a state championship, and excited for those guys. Got a couple of family members on the team this year, so we'd like to see them, pull it out as well.
Let's go do some softball and give the women a shout-out. I believe Lexington also in the state championship for that. I know they've been playing very well. What have you got there as far as Midlands and the softball teams?
Lexington made it to the upper state championship. They ran into a buzzsaw and a really good Burns team. Okay. Burns has a couple of pitchers that's going to Winthrop, and they really really had Lexington's number this past week. I don't think the scores are really close, but I don't think it's that big a difference between the two schools. I think Burns is just playing really well right now, and they get a Somerville team that I think I saw a stat earlier this week that's won 83 games in a row. So Somerville is definitely the the top dog here in softball in South Carolina, and they got a commit that's coming to South Carolina. She pitches for them, and I think she's coming to South Carolina as a position player, but she pitches for the Green Wave, and that's gonna be a really good series. Maybe in all honesty, you don't always get the best matchup of the best two teams in the state because of classification rules, but I think Burns and Somerville probably can stake claims that they might be the best two teams in the state, and they will determine who's the best next week. Sticking with softball, though, we do have Gray Collegiate. They are in the state championship. They play York next week. York knocked off AC Flora in the upper state championship, so Gray Collegiate will play for a state championship. They won a couple here in the recent years. They're loaded. They got a lot of talent as well. I think we talked about them earlier this year. The Boulware girl, she leads off, and she's a threat to hit a home run about any time she steps to the plate. And Saluda is still alive in the 2A playoffs. We got some classifications that's still playing and has not determined who's in the state finals yet. And Saluda's one of them. They will host 96 tonight. 96 has to beat Saluda twice if they're going to get to the state championship. So could have a couple teams here in the Midlands playing for softball state championship next week as well.
Let's give a shout out to track and field as well. I know you got some information on that.
Yeah, so, I think, we don't talk track and field much on this program, but maybe we should more. You had 4 programs last weekend go in and win state championships, and I think they all repeated. Blythewood girls won. I think that was their 3rd straight. The Ridgeview boys won. That was their 2nd straight. The Gray girls won another title. Fairfield Central boys, they repeated as well. For Fairfield Central, Ty Greer, he won the 100 and 200. And he was on the 4x100 team relay that won. So he was really a big point winner for that team. Jaden Boyd for Fairfield Central, he had a really good showing. I think he won the long jump. He was 2nd in the 100. You look at Gray girls, Tamara Stewart, she had a really good outing for the War Eagles. Jordan Best for Ridgeview, he had a really good showing. The Ridgeview boys are just solid across the board. I know some of their relay teams went and ran in some national meets this spring, and some of those guys we could talk about come to fall because they're football players as well. And so they will be they're really good, and like I said, they repeated as champions. And then the Blythewood girls, Peyton and Haley Hightower, they had good outings for the Bengals to bring home another title. And then just some individual performances last week in the state championships. Richland Northeast, Ethan Moody, he won the 100 and the 110 and 400 hurdles. And you don't see many guys that win a sprint event and then a hurdles. I've been doing this a long time. I don't really recall a guy winning a sprint event and a hurdles event in the same year. So it's a very good showing for him. And then Westwood's Jaden Wilson in the 5A level, he won the 100 and 200. So a lot of great track and field here in the Midlands, and those guys just solidified that last weekend with state championships.
Yeah, 400 hurdles is a ridiculous race. Not only are we running full speed a whole lap, and then we're going to throw hurdles on top of that. Get out of here. That's ridiculous.
Chris, we always appreciate it. Jeff does weigh in, says don't gloss over Batesburg-Leesville baseball playing for a state championship. So good luck. Good luck.
Rob Balknight, yes, sir. Rob Balknight's got the Panthers in the state championship for the first time since 2004. So, yeah, good shout out to Batesburg-Leesville. They played Philip Simmons.
Good deal. Good deal. Chris, we always appreciate it, and I look forward to catching up with you next week.
All right, sounds good. You guys have a great week.
Appreciate you.
Hey, you too. 803-404-6100. We'll come back, get a little bit more into what John Whittle wrote yesterday on thebigspur.com regarding Paul Maneri when we return. It's the early game.
And taking a look at your traffic and weather once again in the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center. Still have the accident out at I-20 and Augusta Road. That is exit number 58. Just be careful as you're making your way through there. But besides that, everything looking relatively okay for right now on the roadways in and around Columbia. Weather still sitting at about 65-ish degrees right now downtown. High today is going to get up to 82 with a lot of sunshine. High tomorrow, 76 with some cloud cover. 82 on Sunday with a chance of rain, and then a pretty cloudy day on Monday for your Memorial Day holiday with a high of 76. That's your traffic and weather from Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center on the early game.
.36 here on your Friday morning, Memorial Day weekend. And, we've been discussing a lot of John Whittle's article, a behind-the-scenes look at the 2025 baseball season. We're going to continue to discuss it. The shame in it is we have now done a show for an hour and 36 minutes, and we have not given any credit, and we will coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, to Ashley Chastain Woodard and the softball team as they get going in their regional here in just a few hours over at Beckham Field against UCLA.
Yes, obviously things are going well over there. So we're good. We got that taken care of. We're gonna come to that towards the end of the year, end of the show. We'll do softball 101. Get you up to date on that. We got that. We good.
Doing well, yeah.
Yeah, that kid's doing fine. We're good. We're good. We don't need to pay attention to that one. There's a fire over here, though. There's a major fire.
Put the flames out.
Yeah, put the flames out first.
Yesterday, John Whittle. If you haven't seen this on thebigspur.com, it's not. There's just nothing that's good about what occurred with South Carolina baseball. I mean, there is a lot of things in this article, in this expose, if you will, breaking it down. What has occurred with South Carolina baseball this year? One of the things that is mentioned. That is mentioned in here is the lack of player development and regression of players. This is John Whittle on with Tyler and Terry yesterday discussing that. Here's what he had to say that's in this article.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the numbers year over year, I mean, it's kind of damning, both from a pitcher and pitching player standpoint. There's six guys on the roster from a pitching standpoint that came back, and basically every one of them performed at a lesser level than what they did the year before. Parker Marlott made a few strides in some ways when you compare his overall stats or SEC stats, but most of these guys either didn't take a step forward or took a big step back. Tyler Pisser was really good last year for the Gamecocks. SEC Pitcher of the Week one week. And you look at him, and he finished with a 17 ERA in the SEC this year. Roman Kimball, I mean, God bless him. He was one of South Carolina's starters last year in SEC play for a while, and he didn't perform great. He had a 6.75 earned run average last year, but that would have been third best on the team this year. If you take that ERA from SEC play last season and moved it over to this season, and he couldn't even get into a game. It's just you look at guys offensively, and Kennedy Jones, obviously did not perform to what we thought he would. Ethan Petrie took a step back in a lot of ways, especially from a power standpoint. I mean, his OPS, in SEC play dropped about 150 points from last year. Blake Jackson, he did a couple of things a little bit better. His on base percentage was a little bit higher in SEC play, but his OPS dropped a good bit. His slugging percentage fell off the map. I mean, there's just guys, when you look year over year, I mean, guys that you have a sample size of going against SEC competition in this program, and you look at performance year over year, and not only did they not get better, they got worse.
What do you take away from that, being a coach, a teacher, a former player, and you hear all of that right there.
Yeah, well, you bring coaches in to improve performance, to build upon where they were, and in time if it slides backwards, then you have to start asking questions about if they were already here, why did they go back? It seems pretty clear that there was no uniform instruction on how this group of players was going to improve. You add that on top of, from what we're finding out, not a very pleasant locker room experience. It seems simple to me why you would regress. They didn't have clear instruction, and they didn't want to be there.
Tyler, looking at the clips, I don't see anything specific. Did y'all have anything yesterday? Because there's also a part in this article, in this expose. Keep calling it an article, but it's long. Did y'all have anything with him talking about the changes in the weight room and how South Carolina approached strength and conditioning?
I don't know if he specifically touched on that with us. I think that kind of fell under the practice issues and stuff like that. But that was kind of at the beginning of the article, that they weren't lifting as much like in the fall and stuff that they'd done under, I'm assuming, Coach Kingston and stuff in years past. And you saw that lack of strength and development from that standpoint early in the season. And then he had to switch it up and add an extra weight day in there, I think on Fridays, before playing games and all that kind of stuff, because it was very clear that, what they'd done in the fall wasn't working.
The part in here, it says the fall, this is from John Whittle, reading verbatim, the fall is when players get bigger, stronger, faster. Strength and conditioning coach Billy Anderson, who started with the baseball program in the late 1990s, had his time with the players cut drastically. Anderson has typically had the team in the weight room 4 times a week in the fall, but Maneri made the decision to cut that back, and the players only lifted twice a week. Goes on to say the twice-a-week schedule continued until the second week of SEC play, and then it was up to 3 times a week. Players then added Friday to their lift schedule. While coaches have mixed opinions of lifting on game days, none of the coaches that I spoke with, referring to John Whittle, had players lifting in the fall only twice a week, Preston. And that's another thing right there where, football, baseball, basketball, we talk about spring practice for football, the summer for basketball. That's the time you have to really improve yourself and also get yourself in better shape. And it sounds like for whatever reason, Paul Maneri decided to cut back on that. Yeah,
so my question would be, okay, if they cut back in the weight room, did they add that time on the field, or did they add that time in pitching? I don't know. I have not heard. I guess I could hear an argument from a coach who says we want to spend less time in the weight room, we want to spend more time on the field, we need to work on this, that, and the third. I could hear that argument. It doesn't seem like that was being done, though. And so if you cut back on one thing, you would assume that they would add in another thing, and that doesn't feel like that happened.
803-404-6100. We'll come back, wrap up hour number 2, get back into a couple of the worst punishments that you've ever received for your team playing a bad game, or you playing a bad game. We'll get into that. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Tyler Head in for Jen Jensen. It's the early game. Bill Gunner, for the Ecton Law Firm, have you been receiving mean, nasty notices from the IRS? Do you feel like you're under a lot of stress because they're coming after you or your business? Well, if that is the case, all you got to do is make a simple phone call. Call John Ecton and his team. They are dedicated to resolving your income or business tax issues for good, but it requires you to make a little bit of effort. You got to give them a phone call. Get that free consultation. 803-771-9800. Again, that's 803-771-9800. John Ecton and his team are ready to offer you the peace of mind you deserve, to help you navigate the IRS maze. But you've got to make the phone call, and time is of the essence. You can't wait another day. You need to go ahead and make that phone call today. 803-771-9800. You can also visit them on the web, EctonLawFirm.com. That's ECTON lawfirm.com. That's how you can reach out to John Ecton and his team. Call him today. Tell him Bill Gunner sent you. $7:49 as we roll along here on your Friday morning, leading you into Memorial Day weekend. Lacrosse, Preston Thorne and Patrick Perrett are fired up. Big day tomorrow. Cornell and Penn State. And then just if you just say lacrosse, I'm like Maryland and Syracuse. That sounds about right.
Shout out to my cousin DJ. He played for the now defunct Presbyterian lacrosse team.
Okay.
Went up to watch my cousin, whom I love very much, and my family. We all went and watched DJ Brown, my guy. We went to go watch Presbyterian play Duke lacrosse.
Oh, no.
Wasn't a lot of fun.
I was going to, well, you weren't on the, they call it field. You weren't on the field, but it's probably when your own family walks out early, I'm guessing that's embarrassing.
I mean, I think we pretty much knew what the fate of the team was going to be. It was...
Is Johns Hopkins, that's still like a really good lacrosse
that's still
school
good.
too?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like, yeah.
But we were at Duke. We were deep as a family, and it did not
Went
go
poorly?
It went as expected. I don't even know if it went poorly. It went as expected.
So in a game like that, does the coach get upset and just make him get back on the bus? Like, do you have to just hold your stick all the way, on the way back?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Like, sorry guys, I know they're better than you, but you're gonna have to not shower after this game.
I guess that was the equivalent to a money game in lacrosse.
Okay, all right.
We were the money.
We've been discussing all morning this article, this expose, this huge article on thebigspur.com. If you haven't read it, you need to go check it out. Guys, Tyler and Preston, I mean, we're going to talk more about it next hour. We're going to get into a few other things as well. But for us that tried to figure out what went wrong when you get beat 22-3 by Florida, 24-2 by Auburn, run differential in SEC play was -156. Mm-hmm. You knew something was amiss. Something was wrong. After you read this, did we know it was this bad?
Well, we didn't have the details to confirm maybe what some of our suspicions was. And I think that's why I was very hesitant to say, the players quit or they're laying down or things like that. It's just because when teams start going into realms of dysfunction, we as the outside often do not have any idea what is happening in those games. And so I don't know. I didn't know what the details were or some of the details, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that's not within this story that we still don't know. But we could have assumed things were going down a bad path.
I did find it interesting as the season went along, and obviously things got worse. The finger pointing was consistently at the players, and he said in a roundabout way, hey, we just don't have the talent this year multiple times. And at no point did he ever say, hey, Terry needs to do better at this or Miley needs to do better at that. There was no, coaching being blamed at any point. And I'm not saying it's all on the coach. I'm not saying it's all on the players either, but I did find that odd, the way that he would consistently kind of throw the players under the bus a lot. And again, when you kind of read the story yesterday, kind of checks out with how things were going behind the scenes, apparently.
You're exactly right about that, and I was trying to look for the quote that John Whittle had in here, basically where Paul Maneri, in his opening press conference, basically said he wanted to be the person who took all the criticism, that he was the guy that would take the arrows and not the players. Here it is. He said in his introductory press conference last June that he wants to be the lightning rod for criticism, not the players. But I think it was very early. I want to say the Oklahoma game, and you called it during a thing where he basically just said, I can't remember verbatim, but something to the effect of, we got to get better players in here.
It just made me raise my eyebrows. Mm-hmm. And I always tell coaches, hey, your players can hear this. I don't know. To Paul's credit, he didn't just say it to the media. He told them to their face, too. So it wasn't as if he was talking behind their back. So it wasn't anything that they hadn't heard before, according to reporting. So he was telling them there's things to their face also. But, you got to be careful what you're saying out there.
Now, you could easily say maybe the players didn't quit on each other, but they quit on the coach. One other piece to this article that is out there is basically saying that Paul Maneri, late in the season before the team went to Auburn for that series, the Wednesday practice, they left on Wednesday, but at the Wednesday practice, he did not even leave the dugout during a practice, just stayed in the dugout. Says for all intents and purposes the season was over, but Maneri showed through his actions that he seemed finished with the year with a few weeks remaining. The team practiced on Wednesday before heading to Auburn for the series that began on Thursday, but Maneri didn't leave the dugout during practice. He stayed sitting on the bench with little interaction with any players. After the team was pummeled in the series opener, he did not address the team prior to the next day's doubleheader.
That's scathing. That is again, institutional ineptness, malpractice, however you want to lay that out. And I'm sure there's another side to this story. I'm sure maybe he'll say I was working on some administrative things, and that's what the assistant coach is for. I can hear that. I can get that, whatever. but perception is what matters. And if your players perceive that you were just checked out, then that's the reality of it.
And I think this is all the more surprising because he comes across as a very nice guy, very likable guy, likes to tell stories. We called him Paw Paw, as a term of endearment. But, like, this version of him is a complete 180, which is why this is so shocking, I feel like.
The other part to all of this is going to be John Whittle has a lot of credibility, and a lot of people are going to side with John Whittle on this, and rightfully so. As we said, John Whittle doesn't just put anything out there without vetting it through multiple sources. We'll talk about this in the next hour. Can Palmineri win the fan base back in the offseason? Hour 3 on the way. Bill Gunner for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder, and First Palmetto Bank. It is almost June. We are almost, can you believe we're almost halfway through the year? Well, as you get into the back half, if you are looking to buy a home, if you're looking to build a home, or if you're looking to refinance your current home, you need to contact the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank. Now, First Palmetto Bank, locally owned and operated right here in the Midlands, and that means quick and precise underwriting for you. It means you get the decisions or the answers you need for your questions very quickly. So call Jacob Crowder today and see what the interest rates are. See what options are available to you. See how much money you might be able to save. 803-719-1005. And that's 803-719-1005. Again, if you're looking to refinance, if you're looking to build, if you're looking to purchase a home, if you want to be a first-time homeowner, you need to call Jacob Crowder today. He's the mortgage guru for a reason. He helped me about 5 years ago, and he will be ready to help you. 803-719-1005. Call Jacob Crowder today.
Time for another look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Friday morning. Start your Memorial Day weekend. Looking at the roadway, still about the same as it was a little bit earlier. Have the accident out at I-20 and exit number 58. That is at Augusta Road, but that's about all that's really happening on the roadways right now. Oh, actually did just have one more thing pop up here. That's an accident at 602 and Charleston Highway. So that's all that's really happening on the road. Still sitting here in downtown Columbia right now, temperature-wise at about 67. Today going to get up to 82 with lots of sunshine. 78 tomorrow with sunshine and clouds. 81 on Sunday with a chance of rain. And then 75 on Monday with some clouds rolling in as well. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the game.
8 a.m. as we get you going here on your Friday morning. Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, Tyler Head in for Jen Jensen. Lot to get through. A lot to get through. We've been doing our most important things in the morning, but a lot of it is centered around right now this article that has come out on thebigspur.com by John Whittle. Best in the business, really, when it comes to covering baseball. He's been on the beat for a long, long time. I've known him for a long time, and I'll vouch for him. And I know a lot of people will. John is incredible at what he does. Again, he's covered baseball in this market since I've known him. And, I got dragged around with him occasionally. We'd go do, because obviously for internet sports sites, recruiting is the lifeblood. Everybody wants to know about the Preston Thorns of the world, the defensive tackles down at Somerville that are supposed to be 6'3", 315.
John Whittle's the one that's going to tell you that he's actually 6 foot.
Yeah. But John Whittle and I would travel around and we'd go do interviews, go to high schools. Well, in the middle of football recruiting things, he'd be like, "Well, we got to venture off to this high school. We got to see this baseball player." I was like, "Okay, great." So I spent many an afternoon watching BP at some high school I'd never heard of, and just kind of hanging out.
The ball comes off his bat different. Did you hear that phrase?
In his defense, I did get to see Corey Seager at his high school somewhere. He was at North Carolina taking batting practice, and I was like, because Whittle told me he's committed to South Carolina, but probably not going to make it. It's going to be you're going to go watch a high schooler that is pretty much going to make it to Major League Baseball, and lo and behold, I did. Shook Corey Seager's hand. He doesn't remember me, and I vaguely remember it. But so John is covered. So I say everything here in this article, I have zero reason to doubt. Absolutely zero reason to doubt. Whittle also has contacts throughout the baseball world, and I say that because he went in fact-checked or asked opinions of other coaches. Hey, do y'all do this pitching fielding practice, PFP, I think is what he called it? Do y'all do this? How do you work out your players in the fall? He didn't just ballpark and guess on this stuff. He would ask the legitimate questions like, all right, how many times do your players work out in the fall? 4? Okay, well, South Carolina's doing it 2. And he uses that in this article. And Preston and Tyler, I ask, because Keith in Camden says Paul's got a bigger challenge than winning fans back. Paul's got to be able to win a lot of recruits, uphill battle. I don't know how Jeremiah Donati's going to take this article, and I don't know what kind of conversations he's going to have with Paul Maneri, and I don't know if Paul Maneri, you don't like this, which is totally understandable, Paul Maneri just sitting down with Jeremiah Donati and being like, hey, the players weren't good enough. That doesn't work, right?
No, it doesn't. Not when you hear this, because, again, it doesn't matter what the players are. Your job as a coach to make your players better. And clearly, based on the reporting, based on the statistics, based on objective facts, that did not happen. So even if they were not good enough, cool. That doesn't explain what happened throughout this season. If they're not good enough, you might say, hey, man, we came up short in a couple series, couldn't get over the hump a couple of times. That doesn't explain 85-24 in the final SEC series. It doesn't explain a lot of the things that happened. It doesn't explain some of the institutional malpractice that you saw there. So, yes, maybe the players weren't good enough, but what my concern is, okay, let's say we gave you all the best players. Let's say we got all the best players. From what we've read, doesn't feel like that would matter. You, as a chef, if I was a chef and you gave me a prime Wagyu beef filet, I would still burn it and ruin it. It doesn't matter how good the product is. If I can't cook it, I can't cook. And right now, we got to be like, Paul Maneri can't cook right now. And that's just based on reporting and the results that we've received.
And reputation with coaches spreads very fast. Of course, college players do Cape Cod leads, summer ball. You know, these are guys that played together in, travel ball growing up or high school camps and those kind of things. Word can get out very quickly about what a coach is like. And, again, I'm expecting a fair amount of players to go into the transfer portal when it officially opens up on June the 2nd. And, again, Coach Maneri's going to go portal shopping with seemingly a higher level of funds than they had a year ago. But there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to hear about Coach Maneri, read this article maybe themselves and say, yeah, maybe I'm going to go somewhere else instead.
Go ahead.
We saw Lamont Paris's first year, which was by no any means unsuccessful, was not very good. But in that year, we heard Lamont talk. We saw the way he handled the G.G. Jackson situation. We were like, okay, there's something there. The results were not good, They did not play well, but you felt like things were on the up. Mm-hmm. That is not how I feel at the end of this first season.
This is John Whittle yesterday, and can things get better? Here's what John Whittle had to say.
It's a great question. South Carolina, the athletics department is planning on giving the baseball program a lot of funds to go out and try to buy players. And heck, that's what we need to call it now, buying players. So that's going to be beneficial. If assuming this House settlement goes through, dollars for baseball are going to come down significantly from the NIL era to the rev share era. And South Carolina packs on the rev share dollars, which is what I believe is going to happen, at least as we sit here today. That's going to give South Carolina an advantage to get better players and maybe some others. But at the same time, you've got to be able to convince those guys to come in regardless of the money. So, you've got some really good freshmen who are currently on the roster, and I think a few of those guys are going to stay. And but those are the encouraging things when you have guys like a Bo Hollins who was phenomenal this year and doesn't get enough credit and should have been freshman All-SEC. I can't believe that he wasn't. KJ Scobie had a really good year. I'm high on Gavin Braylon. I know his numbers don't look great, but I've been high on him ever since he signed with the Gamecocks. And so you've got some young pieces to build around, but a lot of schools have young pieces too. Like I said, Bo Hollins was left off the all-freshman team. There were 12 guys on the all-freshman team in the SEC, and none of them were Gamecocks. So that means that not only do the other programs have good players, they've got good freshmen too. So it's going to be a challenge. Somebody said to me the other day, and I hadn't even thought about this, said, you can double South Carolina's SEC win total next year and you still don't make the NCAA tournament. So it's there's a lot to do this offseason, and some of it is certainly going to be with getting players in, and you have to think that there's going to be some self-evaluation, self-scouting, so to speak, within the program on what they need to do differently from a coaching staff standpoint and an operational standpoint in terms of better positioning players to succeed. At the end of the day, I believe the great coaches get the most out of their players and give their players every opportunity to be successful. And I don't think that those two benchmarks were hit at all this year.
It's twice he's not given a ringing endorsement for next year. Once on this show and once there.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why there would be. That'd be blind faith. That'd be silly. Based on the evidence that we've been presented, it doesn't seem like you would have a lot of hope moving forward. Now, I will say this. There is something that coaches do in these types of transition periods where you draw the line between those were those guys, these are our guys. Are you going to be part of the new? Are you going to be part of the change of the culture? That's what Lou Holtz did, and guys bought into that. I don't know if Palmineri is going to be able to do that based on the information that we've been presented.
Tyler, you heard that. You talked yesterday. You heard Ray Tanner say that. Excuse me, Ray Tanner.
Not a Freudian slip. Not a Freudian slip.
Well, because
not a Freudian slip, because this whole conversation has been had, and somehow Ray Tanner's just been able to slink through the cracks on this one.
Well, I got a text came out. I said Ray Tanner because I was reading the text, and it basically is saying that did Ray Tanner do his legwork? And we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. But Tyler, your opinion there on what you hear John Whittle say as it pertains to baseball, because like I had to do something in Memphis. I had to do an interview out of Memphis the other day, and one thing is I said, and Preston and I have talked about this fan base knows good baseball.
Yep.
They've again, it's 4 seasons in the last 55 where South Carolina has either been below 500 or at 500, and this is the worst season that they've seen. I'll give South Carolina baseball fans all the credit in the world. They know what good baseball looks like when that goes on the field. I always question if they know what good basketball looks like on the men's side, because on the basketball and the baseball have been complete opposites for the last 55 years, really.
Well, and baseball's been the one sport that has been consistent. Like
Exactly.
you said, you've seen, 4 tournament wins in your lifetime, all those coming in, basically one season. Football really didn't start turning things around until the turn of the century, but baseball has been a consistent thing, and that's why it's so much beloved, here locally in Columbia. And look, not every single Gamecock fan is going to read this article. Not every single Gamecock fan is going to be listening to us talking about it today, but word spreads pretty fast. And if you're in the grocery store sometime this weekend, you see somebody with a Gamecock baseball hat on, hey, did you hear that thing about Coach Maneri? Did you read that article about Coach Maneri? Like, it's going to spread to where if he's still the coach by the time next season rolls around, you're going to have a majority of your fan base actively rooting against your head coach, wanting to see him fail because they don't think he's the right person to lead this program. And that's a dynamic that I don't know how you exist with that dynamic personally.
803-404-6100. Let's get out to the phone lines. Ray is on the line. Ray, how you doing this morning? What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning. Good Friday morning. I tell you, I called in. Well, I called in quite a bit, of course, but it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and in my opinion, at that time was that, the Monera experience just didn't work out here. And I know we got a ton of money tied up, but I tell you, what I would like to see Donati do, because I think at this point, it's just like Tyler just said. I think that was a great point. It's going to kind of be like your NFL team that's not doing good, and you don't want them to win, so you can get that number 1 draft pick. I think it's going to come down to exactly what Tyler said. If I'm Donati, I go ahead, I let Monera go, but I don't hire a new coach. I tell Monty Lee, you got to be the coach of this team. You're going to be like the interim coach. Prove yourself.
Oh, lost Ray there. We'll see if we.
But I think that's what you do, because that's just my opinion. That's what you do, because this program is in shambles right now. And talking about Whittle, I give Whittle all the credit in the world. I mean, he's not writing this article, guys, from a skyscraper in Midtown Atlanta or a skyscraper in Uptown Charlotte. I mean, he's right here in the trenches, and I give him all the credit in the world for having I'll just say it, the guts to tell the absolute truth, where a lot of people in this position, couldn't do that. I give him a lot of credit. But I think Donati's got to act. I think he's got to do something. But thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Appreciate the phone call.
Yeah, like I said, yesterday, Jeremiah Donati became the AD. Yes, I know he got named before. Yesterday, he became the AD with the conversation that's swirling around baseball and the information that we got presented about the new stadium. We will finally get to see Jeremiah Donati's mark on this program moving forward from yesterday.
803-404-6100. That's how you can weigh in if you want to this morning. We'll come back. And speaking of that, there was good news yesterday. We got a little bit of a new stadium glance. That new stadium smell a little bit. We'll talk about that. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Tyler Head. It is the early game. It is Memorial Day weekend, and you know what? Just like every other Friday, that means a trip to Old Timey Meat Market for the Gunner family. That is right, but this weekend's a little bit special. Memorial Day weekend means picking up some extra steaks, maybe a few extra slices of salmon, maybe a few of their Italian chicken skewers. I can tell you this, you visit any of Old Timey Meat Market's 3 locations, you're going to find a delicious meal ready to hit the grill or hit the stove. Just stop by today. South Congaree, the St. Andrew store in Irma, or of course, that great Lexington store that I'm always at. Stop by and check it out. The reason we love visiting Old Timey Meat Market is because the great folks there, they want to get to know you. It's an old school non-grocery store meat buying experience. Just like when you used to walk into your butcher shop, they know your name, they know your kid's name, they know your pet's name. It is a family environment, and that's why we love going there. So stop by Old Timey Meat Market today. Absolute best prices, absolute best cuts of steak, pork, chicken, and salmon. Stop by Old Timey Meat Market today and tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
It is your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on your Friday on the game. A few things to report out there on the roadways. Do have an accident, St. Andrews Road and Jamil Road. Careful as you're making your way through there. A little closer to the city, got Highway 602 and Platte Springs Road, as well as 602 at Charleston Highway. A couple accidents in that area. As we move along in the morning, temperature right now 68 degrees. High today is going to get up to 82 with plenty of sunshine. 78 tomorrow, partly cloudy. 81 on Sunday with a chance of rain. And then 75 on Monday for your Memorial Day with lots of cloud cover. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the game.
$8:18 on a interesting Friday. What a way to start Memorial Day weekend. We used to get the blockbuster movies come out Independence Day or Hangover. I'd have to go back. I wonder, there's probably an article out there somewhere that we could have gone into on like best Memorial Day weekend movie releases, what's done it over the year. But this morning we wake up and we get a blockbuster article release from thebigspur.com and Expose, yeah.
Expose.
And John Whittle.
Banger.
There's a lot of blame to go around. We'll get into that. We normally have message board mania. We'll do text messaging mania, as Preston just said here.
By the way, I do have a list of Memorial Day movies later if you want to get into that.
We need to. We're going to. Let me read some text messages. First texter, could this be a fire with cause possibility?
Lawyers are going to have to lawyer on both sides. Maybe. There's arguments.
The Eddie Copper thing, that was a pretty bad situation. That could be something where there's some teeth to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the. I'll go back and read that one. Marshall weighs in. I know it's expensive, but Maneri has already set us back a couple years. If we lose again like this next year with him, he sets us back a decade.
Or maybe not. Or maybe we just don't come back. Because I think we all hope that that's a possibility, but there are programs where they just never came back. And I think we're at the brink right now.
I think it's easier to come back now than it used to be because of the transfer portal. If you got, I know they weren't dead in the water, but look at what Ashley Chastain Woodard did in 1 year, basically flipping the roster. And I do think, look, South Carolina is still a prestigious baseball job. It's not what it was. It's been tarnished. I think you and Jen described it as the outside of the house looks very nice. It's got good bones. The inside needs a good fixer-upper.
Don't open up that wall. I think this is what John Whittle did. He opened up the wall.
Yeah.
There's mold. Water damage. It's all messed up.
It's in a great location, but it needs a lot of work. And so I do think in this day and age, South Carolina could come back. However, it is now becoming like nothing against Chad Holbrook or Mark Kingston. They were fine coaches. They weren't good enough for this university.
Correct.
They were fine coaches. You're now getting to a point where those guys were kind of but South Carolina was at such a high level coming off of Ray Tanner's tenure that there was bound to be some slippage. However, I think what Holbrook and Kingston did was, for most programs, not South Carolina, but most, it was fine. They made enough. They won enough. They got the super regionals. They got the regionals. They did enough. At South Carolina, that's not the standard. The problem is you're now getting to a point where you can't hire just an okay coach who kind of does that. You've got to go out and hire one of the best. You got to hire that guy now. That's my opinion on it.
Well, and that's why I stated that this is where we're going to figure out who and what Jeremiah Donati is made of right now, because he's going to have to make a decision which will have an imprint on this athletic program years moving forward.
Another texter weighs in. I'll ask you too what you think about this. He says, as a fan, I feel betrayed by Paul Maneri. He told us all the time how they were doing everything they possibly could to get better and constantly told us how hard they were working. Turns out none of that was true. We have been lied to over and over again. I just don't see how we can keep him around now with all of this coming to light?
I think that's a fair emotion to have, I think. And especially based on what Tyler said, the outward appearance from what we get in the press conferences compared to what we're seeing on the inside. I think that's a fair emotion to have.
My thing is like Tony Vitello is prickly, right? But he wins, obviously, at Tennessee. And if I'm not saying something like this would be okay if it came out about him, but I think it'd be more believable. Kind of like, okay, that kind of fits the personality of the guy that we hear from and see on TV. Like, Maneri, this is a 180. This is like, who is this person? Because it's not the guy that we hear from press conferences. And when he talks to Jay and Elijah on Mondays, like, seems like a two-faced situation here.
Yeah, it does. It does. Another text raising, if Paul can call out the players publicly about their downfalls, the athletic department needs to call Paul out publicly about his downfalls.
I agree.
803-404-6100. Another texter, the weird thing about this whole baseball situation is that there was never any kind of claims against the coach and his whole 4-decade career before this. So how did something like this get so bad so quickly? That's what's so strange to me, and that's kind of what you two just hit on. Like, this is not the guy that we have dealt with off of the baseball field, it feels like.
I'll say this. He was winning at LSU. National championships, World Series, and not to say that it makes this stuff okay, but it's a little more excusable to a lot of people when you have the results to back it up and you're bringing home trophies and rings and all that kind of stuff. You come here and have the worst season in over 30 years, it doesn't fly.
Well, this is a Lamont Paris situation in terms of Lamont's doing it his way, and Paul Maneri is doing it his way. Lamont, in the first year, we went, I don't know if that way is going to work. Year two, we went, it works. Excellent work. Yes, everything you're doing. Fantastic job. This year, we went, not sure that works anymore. Paul Maneri did it his way. He did what he wanted to. And aside from the Eddie Copper thing, which I'll come back and read, this is a coach doing what he wants to do, what he thinks has worked his entire career. And it did not work. And it alienated players. And now they're in a really bad situation. You don't want to use the TrackMan. You don't want to use the Maven Lab system. Fine. That's listen. You go down with the ship. You want to scream and yell at players. You want to tell them they stink and they're bad. That's fine. Okay. Good luck with that. But he wasn't hitting them with baseball bats. He wasn't Urban Meyer kicking his kicker in Jacksonville. You know, what he chose to do is how he chose to handle this team didn't go well. And when you lose, let's be honest. If they were going to a regional, would any of us care? We'd say no. What he did worked.
Yeah, yes, we would excuse it. And again, I played for Lou Holtz. That's why I keep bringing this up. I played for Lou Holtz, and when I read this article, in my mind I was like, doesn't sound that bad. But again, we won. Things were happening, so a lot of those things that were happening as far as the coaches was concerned were either swept under the rug or not really spoken about. When you lose, it brings light to these situations.
803-404-6100. Let's go out to the phone lines. Jack wants to weigh in this morning. Jack, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Good, sir. How y'all doing this morning?
Doing good.
First, I want to ask a question. Did Coach, the baseball coach, did he inherit this team, or did he bring these guys with him?
He inherited a lot. Inherited a lot of them. Obviously, he did. When you say brought with him, he had been out of coaching, so it's not like he was at another school and players left and followed him.
For the simpler purposes, we say he inherited a majority of the team.
Right, and that's my thing. Give him an opportunity. Give him another year. I heard one of the guys was saying that, bring coach back for an interim coach. Well, why would you fire him and now have him back for an interim coach? Let him go out and see what he's able to bring in. He's a known pedigree coach that can do some things. So he inherited what he had. He tried to make it work the best way he could, and things didn't work out. So this is a two-part story. It's players and coaches. You got to put yourself in the ball game just as well. And these guys did not pitch well, and they did not bat well. I would give them a A- on defense. On defense. But on the offense side of the table, man, they miss a whole lot of opportunities. And you kind of got to bring in that with the players. And then you put the injury ones in there, the same. So it hurts all kind of ways. So let's see what the portal look like. Let's see what he can bring in that would like to come and try to play with him. And give him a full year of his team and see what happened in the year. Don't give up on the coach right now. And I think that's half our problem. A lot of times we have a bad year, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, or whatever. We always ready to cast everybody out. Sometimes you have to ride. You have to ride with the disappointment. You have to ride with it and go with it. I felt good about the team, but it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. But hey, I'm still with them. I'm still behind the coach.
Hey, Jack, real quick, just yes or no. How would you feel about him, I guess, either accidentally or purposely leaving his best pitcher off of the lineup card so that you can't throw him in a pivotal game?
How would I feel? I would feel bad.
Yeah.
I would feel bad.
And that happened.
I wouldn't like it.
No, that happened.
Yeah, and then those things, he had tough decisions to make. I guess I would look at it on that side. And it happens. It happens. Okay, maybe mine was wrong. I don't know. But I just look at the side. He did not bring his team in yet. He inherited a team, tried to get him up to par to play. He had the same team that Monty Lee had left with him, with the ones that came in. He gave it a great shot.
We got to hit a break here in just a minute. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's appreciate it for the phone call. Yes, that's another piece to this story is that when South Carolina turns in its active roster at the start of a series, only last. Let me go back. This is from, again, John Whittle. I'm trying to read this in a minute. On April 12th, South Carolina was up 12-2 going to the bottom of the sixth inning against Texas A&M and had what seemed to be a well-stocked bullpen, especially for the series finale. The Gamecocks, however, proceeded to give up 13 runs over the final 4 innings, including a pair of grand slams to lose. One of the best arms on the team, Brandon Stone, didn't throw a pitch that weekend. Maneri said after blowing a 12-run lead that they had better guys. There were better guys to use. John Whittle says maybe that's true. Remember, and Whittle says they're not evaluating in-game coaching decisions, but as it turns out, he could not use Brandon Stone, again, his best pitcher, if he wanted to. Paul Maneri inadvertently left Stone off of the active roster for the weekend, so he was ineligible to pitch. We'll discuss that more when we come back and get Preston's thoughts and Tyler's thoughts on that. You're listening to The Early Game. Bill Gunner from Mid-State Roofing, where for nearly 30 years, Larry Leitner and the family have been the proven leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. And that 30 years is your assurance that their professionals will provide the proper advice, service, and results to the needs of your facility. Whether it's your home or your business, Mid-State Roofing has been taking care of the state of South Carolina for over 30 years here in Columbia, in Florence, in Aiken, in Augusta, Charleston, Greenville. You get the point. All over the state, wherever you're listening this morning. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek. And again, they are there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At Mid-State Roofing, they design and install bonded systems with a protective guarantee that keeps that operation dry and running long into the future. The phone number to get in touch with them, 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. Call Mid-State Roofing today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
Now look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on your Friday on the early game. Still have an accident out at St. Andrews Road and Jamil Road, as well as at 602 in Platte Springs and 602 and Charleston Highway as well. Other than that, everything looking relatively okay in and around the city for your drive-in to start your holiday weekend. Temperature right now sitting at about 68 degrees in downtown Columbia. High today will get up to 82 with plenty of sunshine. 78 tomorrow with a few clouds. 81 on Sunday with a chance of rain. And then 75 on Monday with some clouds rolling in as well. That's traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on the early game.
.35 as we roll along, get you set here. Softball coming up, 1 o'clock today.
Save us. Save us. Please.
You think Ashley Chastain Woodard saw the article and was like, really? This is supposed to be our weekend. But good luck to them. UCLA, 1 o'clock today. ESPN2 is where you can watch that. UCLA rolls into town in South Carolina. All you got to do, take to. We said they have accomplished. I mean, so the softball team has accomplished a lot. There's no doubt about that. But it's kind of part of now, keep the run going. This is kind of like with basketball, with basketball last year. Love it. Enjoy it. You don't know what next year brings. You just never know what the next year brings, the way the current college system is set up.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Like I said, for me personally, once they got through the first round, I felt like the season was an ultimate success. Everything from here on for me. And again, I'm a casual, so I'm not the players. I'm not speaking for the coaches. This is a ringing success, and more so as we keep comparing and contrasting these two very different programs and where they are. If you want to buy stock in that softball program, do it. Buy now, as opposed to the other program where you probably be selling.
That's true. But yeah, as we said, enjoy it and pull for him this weekend. I'd love to see him in the College World Series. I know that's a kind of a stupid thing to say because we all would love to see him, but the way they play, the enjoyment, the way that team, the characters and the group and the energy that they bring, it makes us all happy.
Yeah.
And right now we need to be happy.
And they're winning. And it's fun. It's fun to watch. And they get to do the rare turn of trick here where they're hosting, but they're kind of nationally the underdog because UCLA is such a storied program as far as softball is concerned. So nationally, people that are tuning in, expecting UCLA to be the better team and expecting UCLA to win. So they have two great things going for them. They get to host and play the underdog card here.
803-404-6100. So, again, we've talked a lot about this article that is currently on thebigspur.com, written by John Whittle. I want to go back to what I just read there and kind of get your opinion on it in terms of, I don't know if it's a mistake, if it's inadvertent, if it's punishment. But when you leave one of your best pitchers off of the lineup card for the weekend, that probably has to be explained in some way, shape, or form.
In isolation, it could be any of those things, and I would say fine. In cahoots with everything else that we've heard, it builds the case towards a very not looking good for not only Paul Mainieri, but again, this is a staff. Either Paul Mainieri is not talking to the staff or the staff is not talking to him. This should not happen in a situation where there are checks and balances in place. Hey, what's going on with the roster? Oh, coach, I don't know if you saw that, but you forgot Brandon Stone.
Right.
That's an easy fix. But again, I've been part of staffs. I've been part of teams where everybody's checked out. Let the head coach do whatever they want to do. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to say anything because what's the point? And so we don't know what was going on. In itself, yes, it could be a mistake, a damning one, yes. But with everything else, when you put all the evidence together, it points a very poor picture.
It does a lot in here that certainly kind of explains what has taken place this year. And, again, we'll see what the fallout is from the player standpoint. Because now you got to – if a lot of this is true and you're talking about – well, I mean, it's true. But how players handle this. the ability to now just up and leave and be like, I don't want to play for this guy. I want to go play somewhere else and see what happens, I think raises the question of just what that roster will end up looking like next year.
Yeah, it depends on if everybody feels this way. Yes, this is true, but this might be only this side of the truth. We still haven't heard Paul Maneri speak his side. We haven't heard from players that are staying or players that are from leaving. So, yes, I don't question that any of this is true. I do believe these things happen, as John Whittle is an excellent reporter and is vetted in their sources. There are other sides to it also.
Does Paul Maneri have to respond to this? Does he owe an explanation? Does he owe the fan base anything? Or does he just go about business and just be like, that's a report? That's none of my business. You can say what you want. Because at the very end of the year, he said something about, actually, it was the other day. Tyler, I tell you what, if you have it real quick, what do we have? I apologize. I'm doing this. It is number 3 from Wednesday, Terry Rooney. And I want you to listen because there's a little bit of defiance in here at the very end. This is number 3 from Wednesday. Terry Rooney is here to stay. No staff changes. This is after the LSU loss. But I want you to listen to this specifically because as he says this, he gets a little defiant for the first real time this year with whomever asked the question. You see that's the Wednesday. We got it. Let's play this, and I want you to listen to the tone he kind of takes almost when he seems to be challenged by a question. Here is Wednesday. Okay, no problem. We're working to get that because I don't know if he's going to respond to this. And in this clip, all right, Tyler's got it. I want you to listen to a little bit of defiance, but I also want you to listen to kind of how he comes back and says, we're going to prove y'all wrong. Here's from Wednesday after the LSU game.
No, Terry Rooney is here to stay. He's an outstanding coach, great recruiter, great pitching coach. You do the best you can, and we'll get better. We need to. We had some young kids, I think, that showed flashes of being pretty good for us, and we're going to get some kids in recruiting, and we've got a couple freshmen coming in that I think are going to help us. And Terry Rooney is here to stay. He's not going anywhere. He's an outstanding coach, and he'll prove that as we go forward. And there won't be any other changes with our staff.
So I feel like there's a little defiance in there. He'll prove that going forward, and also just kind of, no, he's an outstanding coach, an outstanding recruiter. You heard everything he said there.
Yeah, he got put on the spot. And that's how a lot of times people respond when they get put on the spot, when their egos are getting in the way. They've already had a poor season. That's probably how I would expect him to respond in that. He also said there were no other staff changes being made. And so that leads to Monty Lee. Does Monty Lee stay? Does Monty Lee go? Does Monty Lee want to leave? I think that's a big question because when you look at the position that he was supposed to have in this staff as the associate head coach, when you start talking about some of these mistakes being made by Paul Maneri, that also goes on the associate head coach. If the head coach makes a mistake, it's his job to go to the associate head coach's job to fill in the gaps. And that wasn't happening this year. So I would position that the head coach failed this year. The pitching coach failed this year. The associate head coach failed. It was a failure for everybody involved.
803-404-6100. We'll come back, wrap it up. We'll find something lighthearted.
Memorial Day movies.
Yeah, Tyler's got us taken care of. Memorial Day movies. Here we go. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner for Zerorez Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. It is summertime, and that means lots of time at home, and that gives your kids and you and your pets the chance to track in some dirt, some leaves, some grass, all those kind of things that'll make the carpets, the rugs, the tile, the upholstery all look dirty. But with Zerorez and their patented ZR water technology, scientifically proven to keep your carpets and rugs cleaner longer, you can make that house look spotless. Just give them a phone call, 803-262-4020, and schedule a cleaning today. Mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game, and you can get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for just $119. That's 3 rooms cleaned for just $119 when you mention me, Bill Gunner at 107.5 The Game. You can schedule online as well, ZerorezColumbia.com. You can even ask about Zerorez's commercial cleaning. Whichever way you want to do it, book your appointment today. 803-262-4020 or schedule online, ZerorezColumbia.com. Zerorez, spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. Bill Gunner for AAA Heating and Air. We are officially about to get into summertime, and, well, if you've been around Columbia in the summertime, you kind of know how it works around here. It gets hot. You're going to need your air conditioner working overtime, and if your air conditioner's on the fritz, well, guess what? AAA Heating and Air has got you taken care of. Maybe you just need repairs. Well, guess what? With AAA Heating and Air, they will do a 12-month payment plan on repairs with no credit check required. You heard that right. 12-month payment plans, no credit check required. Just give them a phone call, 803-677-1500. All you need to do is be a homeowner with a valid bank account. This is your opportunity to stay comfortable without breaking the bank. Maybe, though, you need to purchase a brand new heating and air unit. Well, guess what? AAA Heating and Air has got you taken care of there as well. Guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. Call AAA Heating and Air today for more information, 803-677-1500. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. Wrapping it up here on a Friday morning, getting ready for Memorial Day weekend, where I've seen, I think the big movie of the weekend is going to be the Stitch movie.
Yes, that is it's getting primed in my household for sure.
Oh, really? Yep.
Yeah, and Tyler, I feel like that might be something that your generation might have caught the early one.
Yeah, I grew up on Lilo and Stitch. My wife, big Disney fanatic, is upset that the movie is not quite in line with what the original cartoon was in terms of how some of the characters are casted, because this one's live action. So hopefully your daughter enjoys it, but some of the older crowd not pleased with it.
The purists are not here for it.
Oh, boy. Okay. Oh, boy.
So we have a generational divide of people I like the live action one.
You're probably going to be sitting in the theater where your daughter's loving every second of it, and some 30-year-old's like, oh, that character's not in line with what the cartoon was like.
The original was way better.
What have you got? You said you got a list of Memorial Day releases.
The top grossing Memorial Day releases of all time.
Okay.
You guys want to take a guess at what number one is? It's pretty recent.
Oh, I think I saw this. So I'm cheating a little bit.
I'm not going to know this because I don't know this stuff, but I'm going to go with it's a Marvel movie.
It is not a Marvel movie.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay.
Is it Top Gun Maverick?
It is Top Gun Maverick. Grossed $700 million when it released on Memorial Day weekend 2022.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people said that movie saved the movies, saved the theaters, because if you remember coming out of COVID, people weren't going to the movies. That was something that drove people to the movies. But to your point, Bill, yes, Memorial Day seems to be. Let's list off some other ones. Let's see if we can just get into our nostalgic feels a little bit.
Now, are there any particulars that you think might be high on the list? I can tell you where it's at.
I would say I feel like Independence Day.
Was that a Memorial Day weekend
It just
movie?
feels like it was.
Let's see here. Independence Day. I'm not seeing it on the list.
What about, was it 2 years ago? Barbieheimer or Oppen Barbie didn't Oppenheimer and Barbie come out?
You had the Barbie movie and you had Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
two different movies.
No, but because they were released on the same weekend, they combined the names, and it was back then. But wasn't that a Memorial Day weekend release with those two?
It doesn't look like it was Memorial Day.
Give us the top five if you have a list.
All right, so top five, again, Top Gun Maverick coming in at number 1. Number 2 from 2007, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
2008 had at number 3, Indiana Jones Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which was the last installment of that franchise. 2006
Not
at
a
number
great
4.
movie, by the way. I like Indiana Jones movies, but that one was kind of a letdown.
See, I thought that one was setting up for like Shia LaBeouf to be kind of the next Indiana Jones, and he kind of went crazy after that.
Yeah.
They didn't do it.
The Crystal Skull got to him.
Yeah, it did. Number 4, X-Men Last Stand from 2006. And number 5, Little Mermaid from 2023.
Yeah, okay. Those all.
We also have to remember, movies cost a lot more these days.
For sure.
So a movie that grosses the most in 2022 compared to one from like 1990, it's going to be a little bit different.
Point.
It's definitely inflation at the movie theaters for sure. Little Mermaid, another one of those where people would be like, give me the original. I didn't like the live action.
I never saw the live action, to be honest with you.
There's the spinoff now, Ariel, which is, if you're deep in the weeds like I am on Disney Plus, you might be onto that one. So, yeah. Disney knows how to stretch it out.
I would say, why do we have to tell it in more stories? Why can't we just stick to the original? Hey, she's underwater. She gets her legs, meets the guy on land, sings the songs. Let's just stick with that, right?
Oh, there's more.
I stumbled actually across now the top 5 Memorial Day movies. Number 1, Saving Private Ryan. 2, Flags of Our Fathers. 3, Lone Survivor. 4, Black Hawk Down. And 5, American Sniper.
Yeah. Can't argue with any of those.
Legitimate, actually.
Great movies.
Yeah, you can't. You paint us in the corner. We don't be like, I don't like that one.
Yeah, I don't. So,
salute.
Memorial Day weekend. Yep, thank you to everybody out there. And it'll be a fun weekend. Lacrosse this weekend for you, Cornell and Penn State, Syracuse, Maryland.
I'll check them out. I have no idea who's going to win, but I'll tune in.
You want to take a gander? You want to take a guess?
Go Big Red, Cornell. Sure, why not?
Guess? You going Cornell?
Give me the Big Orange.
You going Orange? I'll take Maryland, and we'll give Jen Penn State.
All right.
We'll figure out a punishment or what the winner gets when they do that. NBA playoffs this weekend. Right as we were opening our show, the other show was wrapping up, the morning show. They said the Knicks -5.5, I believe, tonight.
Well, he's also a massive Knicks fan.
He's a huge Knicks fan. He's a huge Knicks fan.
He's a homer.
Got it.
He's a huge homer. Yeah, watch out. I think there's a sweep on the way in the Western Conference. Oklahoma City Thunder, maybe one of the best teams ever. 96 Bulls.
We're going to end the show with that. He has to stick around for your show now to finish that.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Yep. Everybody have a great weekend. I'm actually out on Tuesday. Got to attend something for my son, but I'll be back Wednesday, and we will rock and roll into next week. And we'll see where South Carolina's baseball situation is. Have a good day. Bill Gunner for the Men's Clinic. Guys, as we get older, as we age a little bit, our health, it kind of can start to decline a little bit. And you know what? Sometimes because we're guys and we're tough and we're big and we're mean and we're strong, we don't want to talk about it. That's not something you should be doing. You need to take care of any health issues, whether it's something just as simple as not recovering after a workout quite like you used to. Maybe it's something as similar as you go and you don't have the energy that you used to do the things you like to do, or maybe you're losing hair and you're not sure why. Whatever it may be, you have to actually talk about these things. And at the Men's Clinic, they want to give you a safe, comfortable place where you can feel understood with your health problems. And they also want to make sure that you get the individual treatment that you deserve. That's why the Men's Clinic is the best in making sure guys' health stays the way it should. They are in the business of restoring guys to the prime of their life. So set up an appointment today. 803-875-MENS. Again, that's 803-875-MENS. Call Dr. Dan Balknight today and schedule an appointment.